1, 2, 3, let's go.
Wednesday afternoon, hoping you will tune into our show.
You know, we wake up and we know who we hope we know who we are, where we are, why we are, and all the rest of it. That's what our memory. We don't even think about it being memory, do we? It just sort of happens, and it's a very intriguing part of our brain. And in fact, there are some people, as you probably know, who over time they say, well, I think there's a creator, there's some person who's playing a computer game with us. This actually was in the press fairly recently again,
right.
And that today is the first day ever of this existence of this game, and the creator, whoever or whatever that is, has implanted a memory into every one of the 8 billion souls, humans on this planet, so that when we got up this morning, this first day of existence of this game, we think we've been here quite a long time. We know who we are, we remember things and all the rest of it. But there are those who believe that all that stuff could be implanted. And we know we talk with our computers, don't we, about memory and data stuff that is there. So memory is quite an interesting thing. Most people, apparently, research shows, if you ask them, do they have a good memory? They will say, very often they will say, well, not really. No, I tend to forget things. I'm not very good at birthdays and so on. But if you ask most people about, you know, their intelligence, their IQ, or their sense of humour, then understandably they're not so willing to say, well, yeah, I'm not very intelligent, I'm not very bright, and no, I don't have much of a sense of humour. We're very reluctant to sort of say anything along those lines, but maybe many of us would be prepared to actually say, yeah, I don't have a very good memory. I think in my case, actually, I've always thought I do have quite a good memory. You know, I've got a cousin who sometimes says to me, he'll say, oh God, you can remember things from years ago, you know, people's birth dates or whatever. And he says, you've got a very good memory. And I think I do tend to have a pretty good memory. Is memory efficient? Is our memory efficient? Well, I think it probably is. It's a difficult question. But if somebody asked you, Cuz, is the word, what word? Is the word infamy in the English language?
I would say yes.
Yeah. And it would actually take you about a second or less to come up with that, because your memory tells you that word, one out of, I don't know how many words there are in the English language, hundreds of thousands, a couple of million, I don't know. But your memory instantly told you, which is quite impressive. I don't mean just because you said it, but impressive for you, but I don't mean that. But it's impressive that you knew that word was there. But if I said to you, is there such a word as mantiness? What would you say?
I would say no.
Yeah. And again, yes, I mean, I just made that word up, mantiness, whatever it means, doesn't mean anything. Again, your knowledge of what isn't a word came straight away to the fore. So memory is an incredible thing, and it's operating with us all the time, even though we're not so much conscious of that. The opposite, I suppose, is of memory, if that's the word, is forgetfulness. And of course, being forgetful can cause embarrassment. There's probably very few people who haven't forgotten a wedding anniversary at some stage, a birthday, a name. It's quite awkward sometimes. Maybe most of us have remember a situation where we've met somebody once and then we bump into them in a shop or somewhere and they say, hello, Trevor, how you doing? And you so want to say, oh, hi, whatever the name might.
The leader of our gang will make the show go with a bang and fund the aim of everything Custis. And fund the aim of everything Custis.
I would say no.
Yeah. And again, yes, I mean, I just made that word up, mantiness, whatever it means, doesn't mean anything. Again, your knowledge of what isn't a word came straight away to the fore. So memory is an incredible thing, and it's operating with us all the time, even though we're not so much conscious of that. The opposite, I suppose, is of memory, if that's the word, is forgetfulness. And of course, being forgetful can cause embarrassment. There's probably very few people who haven't forgotten a wedding anniversary at some stage, a birthday, a name. It's quite awkward sometimes. Maybe most of us have remember a situation where we've met somebody once and then we bump into them in a shop or somewhere and they say, "Hello, Trevor, how you doing?" And you so want to say, "Oh, hi," whatever the name might, and you forget the name because you only really had a cursory mention of it when you met them. So that can be awkward. Some people forget punchlines of a joke. Now, and in fact, it takes my mind back. For a long time, I remembered a punchline. I mean, I don't tell jokes very often, but I can remember this punchline probably from a few years ago, and I can't remember the joke. So that's a bit of a strange one. And the punchline was the first time he tripped over, the second time his hat blew off.
Right.
And that was genuinely a punchline of a joke. And I wish I could remember the joke because the actual punchline was quite funny. Obviously, it's not funny when I just say the punchline. So if anybody listening or watching knows that joke, you know that punchline, can you please somehow let me know that? I'd be most obliged if you would. Anyway, forgetting. Apparently, some years ago, the Queen and Prince Philip were touring South America, various countries. And on the last day, they were departing on a plane from the airport. And there were hundreds, thousands of people waving them off. And apparently it's true to say that one person waving them suddenly remembered that as a member of the royal entourage, he should have been on the plane. He'd forgotten that was their day of departure. So that was a bit of an embarrassing one, not to say a sackable offence, I expect. Memory is so important. I mean, again, last year, it was last year, 2024. Yeah, we now say that. It's 2025 now. Last year I was on a cruise ship, and it does happen sometimes as when you're departing a port, having been there for a day or two.
Right.
People are looking over the side, and people sometimes on the dock side are waving, and humans have this great desire to wave to each other, don't they? In that kind of situation. Anyway, the ship sort of puts its side thrusters on and was moving away from the dock, probably only 3 or 4 yards, when I noticed a couple of people with a pushchair with a child in it, running up the dockside, stopped, shrieking at the ship to stop, which of course it doesn't. We've been on cruises before like this and it's happened, but they don't stop for people. And what they do, I guess they'd have to go to the embassy or whatever to get help.
Yeah.
And that's no doubt what they did. But again, they would have forgotten that before they left the ship that day, they would be told, "Look, we're leaving at such and such a time, 5:30. Please be back latest 20 minutes before, otherwise we won't wait for you." And so it's incredible that people sometimes forget that. So yeah, forgetting is quite a sad part of memory. Now, there was a psychologist, I think he was an Estonian-born guy called Endel Talving, and he used to work out of the University of Toronto, and he did quite a lot of work on memory and forgetting and trying to decide whether we have efficient memories or that they decay.
Yeah.
And he agreed with another person, I think his name is, the scientist was called Bergson, I think his name was. And he simply said that we trail around unawares behind us our whole past. So we're walking through life, aren't we? We're doing the things we do.
Yeah. And
right behind us, if you like, is everything, every piece of data in our memories, which only are there to be retrieved. And we trail them around. And our memory only sort of pours into the present moment anything that seems relevant to that situation. And basically he sort of decided that there are two elements to memory that have to come together. One is memory trace, which which will be something saying about a present situation, and the other one are retrieval cues, something which we remember about a past event, and apparently those two elements have to come together to create a memory. And if they're not both there, then people might say, well, does our memory decay? Is it really that? Probably most of us don't remember too much. Well, perhaps we do, but great detail about our very young childhood, where we were growing up and the school we went to and where we played in the streets or whatever. And we say, yeah, I can't remember too much about it. But generally speaking, if ever we go back to that situation, to where we were brought up, where we were born maybe, what school we went to, memories often come flooding back. So it's only a matter of retrieving those memories through our memory trace or the retrieval cues. So there's a lot to this memory, and this chap Tolving, he constructed a test for some participants to see if they could remember things. And I'll try a bit of this test on you to conclude this, Cuz, if I may.
Right.
Although I can only see you as a blurred figure there, I'll still carry on. Now I'm going to read out some words, okay? And there's 6 groups of 4 words. This is what he put to these participants, trying to decide whether memory was efficient, whether we easily forget, whether we lose our memories decay as we get older or whatever. So I'll tell you 4 words, and then I'd like you just to repeat those back to me, and we'll do them as we go through to see how many you remember. Okay. Right, the first 4: hut, cottage, tent, hotel. Okay. You say those back to me.
Right, cottage, hotel.
Forgot them.
I remember hotel.
Okay, can you say? Did you say the 4 of them? Start again.
So cottage, and hotel. That's all. So there's one.
Okay. We had. It was hut. You probably didn't hear me clearly. Hut, right. Cottage, tent, hotel. Okay. Hut, cottage, tent, hotel.
Hut, cottage, yeah.
I'm sure you can remember those 4. Right. I'll give you the next 4. This is a bit like, I don't know if you have the game up there, but when I was young at Christmas, we always played a game called I Took a Train to Manchester. Have you ever heard anything like that?
No, I've never heard of it.
Well, basically, you went round the room and somebody said, well, I took in my case a pair of binoculars, for example. And they went round and basically the next person said, well, I took a pair of binoculars and a wallet. And you go around, and of course it builds up the things you have to remember. So this is a little like that. So my next 4 words, are you still there? Because you've completely disappeared.
I am,
come back again. Okay. The next 4 words, let me give you a recap. Hut, cottage, tent, hotel.
1, 2, 3, let's go.
Are you still there?
Now, can you say as many of those 8 words that I've said?
Right.
Starting with hut.
Yeah, I probably missed the last ones that you said.
Cliff, river.
Right, hang on. Can you hear me?
Volcano. Can you hear that?
Yeah, so cliff, river, volcano.
Hill, volcano, yeah. Is the sound okay? I'm not sure I'm hearing you properly, actually.
Yeah, I don't really know what's happening here. So cliff, river, and volcano.
Hill, volcano.
Right,
yeah.
so cliff, river, hill, volcano. Yeah.
Right, as a recap then, I'll just to be fair, hut, cottage, tent, hotel, cliff, river, hill, volcano. And then let's make this the last 4.
Right.
Captain, corporal, sergeant, colonel. Captain, corporal, sergeant, colonel.
Right.
You say those 4?
Well, right. I don't remember the last 4 because I'm trying to think of the first 8 now.
Yeah, as I say, you probably won't be able to get all those, but can you? The last 4 were captain, corporal, sergeant, colonel. So there's 12 altogether. They're quite hard to remember 12 words, but I'll read them through and then just see if you can do it. Hut, cottage, tent, hotel, cliff, river, hill, volcano, captain, corporal, sergeant, colonel. Have a go.
Right, so captain, corporal, sergeant, colonel. I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So hut, hotel.
Yeah.
Now I can't remember.
Cliff.
Oh, cliff.
Yeah.
Volcano. I remember cliff and volcano.
Yeah.
I think the last.
Exactly. But now what this fellow did, there were actually 3 more groups of 4, but we won't do that. What he did, this Tulving fellow with the participants, because it was like that, the more those, he gave some all of the 6 groups of 4, he gave some just 1.
Right.
And obviously the ones who had fewer lists, fewer groups to remember did rather better. But what he found was when he gave then the category title, it made a difference. Now, see, can you remember, if I tell you one of the categories, the first one actually was types of building. Does that help to remember what they were?
Yeah, types of building, yeah.
Yeah.
So huts,
Yeah.
cottage,
Yeah.
hotel.
Yeah.
Same one. Hut.
The other one was tent, but that's not
yeah,
really a
that's
building.
it, yeah.
But yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Right, the other one was earth formations, the second one. Earth formations.
So volcano.
Volcano was one, yeah.
I can't remember it.
We somehow managed to talk about Cliff Richard, but he wasn't really there. It was Cliff and and River.
River, yeah.
Okay, so and Hill. And then the last one was military titles. Can you remember those ones?
That's easy. Colonel,
Go on then.
corporal, surgeon, and so corporal
And captain.
captain, yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yeah.
The military one
And
is
that's
easy.
the point he sort of made from that was that our memories are probably very good all through life, even if sometimes we don't think they are. Because what might be lacking is the trigger, the retrieval cue, for example. It's very rare that people's memories really decay unless you get into areas such as Alzheimer's or amnesia. People who suffer chronic amnesia they don't really lose their memories. It's a matter of trying to access them. But when you actually give people the grouping that they're trying to remember, that's a very good trigger, a very good way of remembering. So he basically, to sort of conclude, Tulving said, we have very good memories. We've got those 2 components, a memory trace and a retrieval cue. And as long as they come together, a memory will be sort of planted in our minds. It comes back to something we spoke about a few months ago about our thoughts. Where do our thoughts come from? And within that, where do our memories come from? I mean, I guess all day long, whatever we're doing, we are having so often to remember why we're doing something or how we do something. We might make a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. We remember how to do it. Everything is kind of the muscle. We talk about muscle memory, that we do things in a certain way. And you can still do that. So yeah, memory is as always, anything to do with the brain is a fascinating subject as to how it all works. As I say, muscle memory is one, and perhaps the last thing on this at this point, we might look at it again in the future, but is it overlaps sometimes with multitasking, which again in itself is quite an interesting subject, which I might perhaps try and think about to say something on next week.
Yeah.
Because, we often hear, don't we, going back to the relationship bit earlier on, we often hear that women are much better at multitasking than men. Now, whether that relates mainly to bringing up the children, they have to think of so many things, getting the kids to school, doing the shopping, all the rest of it. Women tend to have to adapt to multitasking, whereas perhaps we men have the position of not having to sort of think about doing more than one thing at once. But actually, much of the time, we are, all of us, doing more than one thing at once. If we're driving our car, we're not allowed to be on the phone, and rightly so, but we can sing along to a song, or we can have a chat with someone in the car with us, and hoping it's not distracting us from the muscle memory that enables us to drive the car a bit on autopilot.
Yeah.
So this multitasking is quite something. And indeed, anyone who's learned to drive a car, we all know when you first start to drive, you have to think of so many different things to do. Your 2 feet, if it's a manual car, are doing something totally different. Your left hand is moving the gear stick. You've got the the windscreen wipers, the indicators, and so on. And it's not easy to necessarily multitask all those things together. But once we learn to do it and practice, then the muscle memory takes over. And again, part of memory is muscle memory, the instincts and knowledge.
Strange what's happening today. Right, so do you want to do the conclusion, bro? Sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, we've had a chat or thought about. Hang on, I've forgotten. What was it? Oh, I know. It's about memory, wasn't it? Yes, there's a lot of interesting things about memory, and again, it's part of this thing within us, our brain, and so on, which is just incredible, really, how it all works. Anyway, hope you found something of interest in all that. And we'll carry on with similar things in the near future. But for now, I've been Trevor Gear, and he calls me Bruv.
And I've been Emmy Hikins, and he calls me Cos. So join us again next week for another interesting episodes of the Alien Spaceship. It's a goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Right, so let me just stop that.
Of our gang will make the show go with a bang and fund the aim of everything casters and fund the aim of everything casters.